Last season felt like a wash for the New York Giants. They dealt with so many injuries on the offense, but even when they were healthy, they weren't very good. This is going to be a do or die year for Daniel Jones. So can Jones and Brian Daboll rekindle the magic of 2022? What's crack-a-lack? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So welcome back to the Deep Dive series where we take a close look at each and every NFL team, and I give you a projection on them in 2024. And next is the New York Giants, the G-Men. But let's first start by talking about how hurt they were in 2023. The Giants opened the season in the rain, and it felt like an ominous foreshadowing for the season they were about to have. They got blown out 40-0 to the Dallas Cowboys, where the offense looked absolutely horrible, and they didn't look any better the following week versus the Arizona Cardinals, but Danny Dimes turned it around in the second half, scoring 24 unanswered points to win. As injuries mounted, the offense struggled as they dropped games against the Niners and the Seahawks. And then versus the Miami Dolphins, Daniels would suffer a neck injury. However, Tyrod Taylor would step in as the starter and almost pulled off a win against the Buffalo Bills, but they did end up beating the Washington Commanders. Finally, the offense was showing some life, but then Taylor would go down with a rib injury in Week 8 versus the Jets. Jones would return in Week 9, only to go down to a non-contact ACL tear that would end his season. Enter Tommy DeVito, who got smacked by the Cowboys 49-17, but we don't talk about that because he would take the Giants on a 3-game winning streak that was capped off by an impressive performance versus Jordan Love and the Packers. Unfortunately, things came crashing back down to earth as the whole team just looked pants against the Saints. Tommy Cutlets would be benched against the Eagles, and Tyrod Taylor would step back in and almost get the win there and against the Rams the following week. The Giants at least finished the season on a high note, beating the Eagles, but after the win, they would fire a bevy of coaches, including the special teams coordinator, and they would part ways with defensive coordinator Wink Martindale. To sum up the season, they were hurt, but they weren't good when healthy. The offensive line may have been injured, but it was also very bad. If your name wasn't Andrew Thomas, then you weren't good, and that showed in the efficiency rankings. The defense had its moments, but they couldn't stop the run to save their lives, and again, this was kind of a season to forget. Real quick, I gotta give a shout out to today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. I absolutely love Underdog Fantasy because I love football, and now that the football season is far and away, it doesn't mean my betting season has to be, because they do all kinds of sports, whether it's baseball, basketball, esports even. They got you covered, whether that's weekly best ball or my favorite, higher lower on player props. So if you sign up at Underdog Fantasy using promo code BROSHMO, then they will give you a first time deposit up to $250. That's right. That's right. So if you're gonna go and bet with Underdog Fantasy, use promo code BROSHMO, take advantage of this offer, but please bet responsibly and bet within your means. When it comes to the offseason, they lost their biggest stars on the offense and defense respectively in Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney, but they also did a good job of adding parts here and there, with their biggest addition coming via a trade as they go out and they get Brian Burns and then proceed to pay him $150 million. I like the balls of this move because seemingly you have two very, I would say seemingly right now, two low-end edge one players that are waiting for that breakout to the next level. Brian Burns, it feels like we've been waiting for that breakout for like 3 years now. But still, now you're pairing him up with the guy that you invested like highly in the draft just a couple of years ago. So you're feeling really good about the pass rush because this is seemingly an obvious upgrade over Azeez Ojulari, who just can't really stay healthy. But that wasn't the only addition they made that I really liked, but it was some of the moves they made along the offensive line as they went out, got where you at? Aaron Stinney, who is going to be serving as the backup here. I don't think he's going to start at one of the guard spots. I think this is a good depth spot with as many injuries as they had on the offensive line last year. having solid enough depth, I think, is a good way to go. And they went out and they addressed. They grabbed where you at. I want to talk about Jermaine Illuminor, man. That may have been my low-key my favorite sign-in here, because I'm sure they went out, they got Illuminor for his ability to play guard and tackle, because if things go south with Evan Neal, then you could kick Illuminor out to tackle knowing you have a solid tackle there. But this is a guy that does have guard experience. He has played guard in the NFL before. So I like the addition. I like the move. I assume he's going to end up playing one of the guard spots with John Runyon playing the other, who some people might think they overpaid. I think it was fine. Like, to me, he is like maybe like a top 15, top 20 guard. He's kind of flirting in that like 15 to 20 area for me. But he's relatively solid. Like, I don't really have many complaints. If he's on your offensive line, and I would say like maybe if he's like your second, third best offensive lineman, I feel like you're probably in relatively good shape. So I like that addition there. So I love the Illuminor. I like bringing in Stinney, even though I wouldn't like it if he was considered their starter. I like running here. We could talk about like Drew Lock coming in to play, be the backup quarterback. They did not bring back Tyrod Taylor. And the funny thing is, like, some people were like, oh, he's coming in for competition. I don't know. Part of me doesn't believe that the Giants believe that, you know? Like, I don't want to say that this current regime feels committed to Daniel Jones, because it essentially is. They could get out of his contract after this season if things just go south. And then, I mean, what, Brian Daboll, you're 3 years in, and now you're going to be drafting a new quarterback. I feel like the leash gets a little tighter there. But they bring in Drew Lock, who I think is a very competent backup. He flashed a little bit when Geno was hurt. But by no means is it like, oh, well, if Jones isn't good, then, you know, Drew Lock will take us to the promised land. And I don't think anyone realistically feels that way either. Devin Singletary had a solid year for the Texans. He's a solid back. That's about it. And it's not like there's much competition behind him. There's a bunch of young, unproven talent like Eric Ray. They drafted Tyrone Tracy, who I'll talk about a little bit later, who I'm a big fan of. I'm a huge fan of him. They also still have Gary Brightwell as well. So it's like, you don't love the running back room, but Singletary does bring a little consistency to it, I suppose. We got they went out, they got some tight ends here. Jack Stoll. They also grabbed Chris Manhertz, who's more of a blocking tight end. I don't know if Darren Waller's officially retired yet, but it seems like the Giants don't expect him to be playing next year. I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. Any other pickups? They re-signed or they threw a tender out on Nick McLeod, which I'll talk about with him with the defense, because that's a solid part to their secondary. Isaiah McKenzie, he might end up making the roster. It won't surprise me if he doesn't. Kind of a gadget player. Jalen Mills, I'm glad he's probably just going to be depth for this squad, because he's just been very not good when asked to start. It's just true. That's just fact. Not even subjective, straight objective fact. And I think that's actually about it for their off-season signings and moves. So it's not exactly like, it wasn't exactly a sexy free agency outside of like the Brian Burns was kind of the big play there, the big trade. But they went out, they addressed the offensive line, which made me confident that this was going to be a team that would go out and draft receiver with their first pick, which they end up doing, going with Malik Neighbors. Because again, I feel like this team's too committed to Daniel Jones. So, hey, we went out, we seemingly improved the offensive line, we grabbed you more weapons. What's your excuse now, Daniel? Or they're kind of hoping maybe things work out with it. But I love Malik Neighbors, blazing fast, can attack the field on all three levels. really good after the catch. He just brings a lot to the table. And then they grab Tyler Nubin, who may have not tested out well, but safety is also a position you could kind of get by not being necessarily the fastest guy. Like having like a 4.6 is not necessarily a deal breaker, but it's something where it's like, okay, well, if this guy's instincts are well enough put together, like I think Justin Simmons was a 4.6 guy. So I'm not too worried about that. He's going to be coming in being that seemingly the replacement for Xavier McKinney. They got Jason Pinnock, who I actually really like. I think he came up as a Jet. Surprised that he didn't stick around there. But in the third round, they get Andrew Phillips, which when I get to talking about the coaching staff, I think the Phillips move makes all the sense in the world. At least when it comes to what Shane Bowen's going to bring to this defense. Because I thought Andrew Phillips coming out felt like a zone-heavy corner to me. And I think this defense is going to be a little zone-heavy in some regards. They grabbed Theo Johnson in the fourth. Daniel Bellinger? Former San Diego State tight end, Daniel. I think he's a fine tight end, too. Stoll's kind of like is what it is. Good depth. Manhurt's just a blocker. That's about it. So maybe looking for the future, especially if you're unsure what's going to happen with Darren Waller. I like that one quite a bit. The fifth round, Tyrone Tracy. I absolutely love, man. He is a smooth athlete. He truly is. This is a guy that just started playing running back this past season after being a wide receiver at Iowa and in his first year with Purdue. The dude's force missed tackle rate was good. His yards after contact were good. This is a cat that was a very solid pass protector. Fun fact, very good route runner. So good route runner coming out of the backfield with some sure hands. Still the vision coming together, but again, just started playing running back last year. But he also brings return experience. He brings a lot to the chop and block here. I was in love with him. I think he was inside my top 5 when it came to this running back class. Darius, I think it's Mayasau. I don't know. It's the drafts. I'm so far away from the draft. I can't remember how to pronounce all these names, but he was a little bit of an undersized linebacker. Came from Hawaii, goes to UCLA, but the dude's like a bat out of hell. Moves around the field pretty well. So gives them some depth, if anything. Pretty solid special teamer. But let's go ahead. Let's jump to this coaching staff. Down below, you're going to see my coaching grades. And I feel like Mike Kafka shares a little bit of the blame of why I'm a little bit lower on Daboll. And, well, a big part of that is because he's been the play caller for the last 2 years. To be fair, him and Daboll did switch on and off with play calling last year as the offense struggled. So, I mean, we'll truly see this year if Daboll decides to just fully take on play calling duties, how everything will run. Will it run smoother? I don't know. We shall see. But I know what this offense wants to be, at least when it comes to Daboll, his background, and what we've seen the last couple of years. Is this is a pro spread type of system that they love their heavy sets. They want to run the football. Not surprising that this team went out and grabbed or drafted like a Theo Johnson, signed Chris Manhertz, grabbed Stoll from Philadelphia. They grabbed all these tight ends because they want to run the football. They're not shy about 12 personnel. And even if they're not efficient running the football, they at least want to keep the defense on its heels to set up that play action. This is a cat that's worked under Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, so makes all the sense in the world. Daboll does like a little bit of the bootleg action as well. But I don't know, man. Maybe that's why I'm a little bit higher on the passing aspect of the squad. Because of just maybe Kafka and his background, being a former quarterback in Northwestern, being a quarterback in the league for a little bit, and then working under Andy Reid as a QB coach. So maybe there's a little bit of a blind spot, or I don't want to call it a bias, but maybe that's what it is. But I'm still relatively positive on this offense will be better than it has been in the past. The question is how much better, right? When it comes to your DC, Shane Bowen, you split ways with Wink Martindale. I was a big mark for Wink Martindale. I love Wink Martindale. When it comes to Shane Bowen, we don't really know too much about him because he's basically spent his whole career under Mike Vrabel, whether it was at Ohio State, whether it was with the Texans or with the Titans. But I assume at least what we're going to see is going to be fairly similar to what we saw with the Tennessee Titans. But Bowen has come out and kind of like talked about how specifically what he wants to do with this defense and how he wants to keep it simple and play to his players' skill set. So like for me, like when you go back and look at what they did at Tennessee, it was a attacking 3-4 that did a lot of different things to keep the offense on tilt. They typically didn't blitz a lot. They like to rely on that front four for the most part, but they knew when to bring the pressure. And that typically happened in the red zone where the Titans were very effective as a red zone defense. So based on what Bowen's saying though, he sounds like he's going to be a little bit more zone heavy with this squad, which again, then drafting Drew Phillips makes, or at least for me, makes a little bit more sense. I'm going to go with just a couple of average grades on Bowen. Again, we're going to have to see more, but he's been under Vrabel for so long. I just can't imagine him being a bad coordinator. The question is he going to be any more than just kind of one of these middle of the road coordinators when it comes to the league? But let's go ahead. Let's take a quick look at the remainder of the coaching staff. Is they truly did have some overhaul. Got a new special teams coach up in the building, as well as looking at some of the other guys here. Cameron, I think it's pronounced Bracilio. Regardless, this is I like this addition as offensive line coach. He was coaching with the Raiders last year, which that offensive line had a bump up. It truly did. Before that, I want to say he was with the Patriots for a while, right? Oh, or am I mixing him up with somebody else? Let me just go confirm. Yeah, no, it was the Patriots. Okay, I thought so. He was part of that coaching staff. But wherever he go, like he's been, which okay, to be fair, it's not a lot of places, but the offensive line has improved. Like guys who were relatively mid or below average stepped up to the plate. So I'm kind of excited. You also get a former NFL offensive lineman up in the building in Coach James F. over here. So that one's pretty cool. Get this guy a picture, man. What are we doing? What are we doing here? Tim Kelly. I guess Shane Bowen wasn't the only guy to come over from Tennessee. But Tim Kelly's up in here being a tight ends coach. I got a little bit of a chuckle out of that. Going to the defensive end of the spectrum, I love Mike Adams being here, former safety in the NFL for a few teams. Were the Colts his final team? I don't know, man. But he bounced around for a little bit there at the tail end of his career. You got Jerome Henderson, who's actually been a very good defensive backs coach throughout his career. Another cat that's been a variety of different places. I remember him in Atlanta. Trying to remember where he was after that. Was it New England as well? No, it was Dallas and then Atlanta. Got it. Okay. But he's been around the squad. He's been around the Giants organization for quite a while. And I think he's always done a good job. He's developed guys there in the secondary, like your Xavier McKinney's and such. So I like him quite a bit. I don't think there's really any other. Yeah, there's no other guys that just kind of like jump off the paper to me. But there's your coaching staff. Am I a little more down on it than I was a year ago. Yeah, but I'm a Wink Martindale mark. That's to be expected. But I have some belief in Bowen being a good call here for the Giants. Jump into the offense, and man, I know people aren't going to like the grades. It is what it is. If you don't agree with me, then you don't agree with me. But let me explain the grades, as I have never been a Daniel Jones believer. Sorry, not sorry. I thought that they should have franchised him and then re-signed Saquon Barkley. They did it the other way around, and quite possibly in a year they won't have either of those guys. I'm just not a believer in it, man. We unfortunately, even last season, and I don't even want to put the blame on him last season when he was healthy. He wasn't particularly like good, but we saw flashes like the second half of that Arizona game. It's just the offensive line was truly horrendous. You had Andrew Thomas get hurt early in the year. You had probably the best offensive weapon, Saquon Barkley, get hurt fairly early in the year, though Barkley would return fairly soon after that. So it's like, I don't know. At some point, you're going to have to cut the cord and be like, we tried. Things didn't work out for whatever reason. Kind of is what it is. So there it is. There's my stance on Daniel Jones. I do think Drew Lock, we might see him at some point this year, whether it's because of injury or Jones gets benched. But I like Drew Lock. I don't think he's anything more than a backup level quarterback. Still, I'm giving the room a D grade when it comes to running back. Singletary is a very solid running back, but I really wish they had a little bit of zest, a little bit of pesto behind them, and they truly just don't. They just don't. They have a bunch of unproven guys, one or two year players. Kind of is what it is, but at least when it comes to the weapons, I love the addition of Malik Neighbors. Darius Slayton is very solid, like vertical threat. Wan'Dale Robinson, I liked quite a bit last year. You get him in the slot, you get creative with them. They really started doing that at spurts. I think it was the Packers game that was the kind of the big one for him. I might be misremembering that, but where they just truly got creative with him. I mean, they were calling jet sweeps. You get the ball to him fairly early, and hey, go make guys miss. I loved that about it, but still, this room's relatively unproven. It just is. Like, oh, Malik Neighbors is going to be a stud. I believe it, dude. He was my wide receiver too. I loved Malik Neighbors. However, at the end of the day, he's still a rookie. Kind of let's wait and see. Darius Slayton is fine. He's like a fine wide receiver 3 or 4. Wan'Dale's solid, but are they going to use him to the best of his abilities? They're going to get him going, get creative with him. Jalen Hyatt, we saw flashes, but that was about it. I mean, in comparison to the rest of the league, just keep in mind, I think the rest of the league is pretty darn talented as well. That's only why they're like so low on my list. And you know what? It really sucks when it comes to the offensive line, right? Because I truly think this group's going to be much better than where I currently have them ranked. It's just, it really depends on Evan Neal and John Michael Schmitz. John Michael Schmitz had about as a rookie year as you could have. There were ups, there was downs. He got hurt for a game. Kind of is what it is. In terms of being a run blocker, I thought he was fine. I knew that was one area he was going to be pretty solid at in the NFL, and I thought he was good in that regard. As a pass blocker, I didn't like it. It reminded me quite a bit of, tell me if you know the name, Luke Fortner, who just got replaced by the ageless Mitch Morris. So wild. Am I saying he's going to go down the same path as a Luke Fortner? No. I actually like John Michael Schmitz quite a bit more. I think he probably takes that step up, but again, that's kind of projecting. Evan Neal, I'm on bus watch, and I'm not going to criticize anybody here because a lot of people believed in Evan Neal. A lot of people thought Evan Neal may have been the safer of those top 3 tackles between him, Charles Cross, and Ikem Ekwonu. Thus far, he has probably looked the most pants out of all of them. That's not saying much. Charles Cross was hurt a bunch last year, though we saw flashes his rookie year. Ikem Ekwonu kind of had a sophomore slump. So it truly isn't saying much. Will this be the year that it clicks for him? Because I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. If it doesn't click early, you're kicking Jermaine Illuminor out there to right tackle, and then maybe you have Evan Neal kick into guard. But I mean, I think Aaron Stinney, I might just start him over Evan Neal, or rather, I don't know, man. It depends what you see during that practice week that you decide to make that move. But I'm a big fan of the Illuminor signing. Whether he ends up playing right guard or left guard, I don't know. I mean, John Runyon, I know Runyon. I think Runyon played right guard last year for the Packers, but the year before he was left guard. So it's like, these are guys that can play both sides. I'm not too worried about that. But they did a good job of shoring up that guard spot. Like, again, John Runyon, I don't think he's a world beater, but I think he's very fine, very solid. Of course, you got one of the best tackles in all of football, in Andrew Thomas. Hey, people were out on him during his rookie year. Then he comes back the next year and was like, uh-oh, watch out. You got a stud on your hands. A lot of people were hoping that would have been Evan Neal's year too. Just wasn't in the cards. I do have Bellinger, I think it's Bellinger, as the starter there at tight end. Because again, I don't quite know what's going on with Darren Waller. We could jump to the depth chart right here. As Darren Waller is still listed on the roster, still listed as a starter. Kind of wait and see, right? Part of me just doesn't think he's going to be with the roster when the season starts. So you got Bellinger. Stoll, Manhurts are going to be kind of situational, depending on what the play calling is. And it gives them time to bring Theo Johnson along slowly. A guy that has a lot of traits and just didn't produce. Like, the production wasn't necessarily there outside of like what he did at the red zone for Penn State. But looking at the like all in all depth, like, man, where do I start? I guess we just stick with the offensive line, truly. So when it comes to the depth, you got Azidu, who unfortunately got hurt last season. Kind of is what it is. He was a guy I was like, okay, maybe he ends up trending in the right direction. He was a 3rd rounder a couple of years ago. I don't think they're necessarily out on him just yet, but now you get just to continue to develop him. I think Stinney's very solid backup. You got Matt Nelson here, and was it Yanni Juice, former Patriots. Was he West Virginia or Iowa State? It was somewhere in the Big Ten, but can't recall. It's been too long. Now, a guy that hasn't seen a lot of playing time, in all honesty. So it's like, man, if they do have it, I'm going to be honest, man. If they have an injury at tackle, it's probably Jermaine Illuminor that's playing tackle. That's what's going to happen. And then Stinney's going to come in and play guard. So that's probably the plan. Most certainly, I think it most certainly is. I think that's the plan there through and through. You had Marcus McKeithen, who was Zidu's teammate, actually, back in North Carolina. He had, I don't know if he had multiple starts. I know he got hurt really early. So don't really have much to say about him. Jalen Mayfield, I hope he's on the practice squad. I hope he's not on the roster. Like, your offensive line's probably in a bad shape if Mayfield is somewhere on the roster. Though he is a guy that, I thought was a developmental player coming out of Michigan years ago. But, like, I feel better. Like, Illuminor opens up so much if things are to go wrong with this offensive line. If Neal is pants, if Andrews or Neal gets hurt, you can kick him outside. If you were to have an injury at guard, Aaron Stinney's there. I'm actually fairly confident in Stinney being a a solid player if you need him for like an extended span, like 5 or 7 games. Fairly confident with him there. Schlotman, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not too familiar with during his time in Minnesota. I think he had some spot starts last year when Garrett Bradbury went down. Let me just go and confirm that, and I think he did fairly fine. But unfortunately, the only guy I have in my head right now is it was that the cat that filled in for Dari Saw, and he got hurt like right off the right from the get-go, and he got hurt in like the most unfortunate manner where he was just getting bullied, like literally bullied him into injury. It was just unfortunate sequence of plays. But when it comes to Schlotman, I'm pulling the snap count up now for the Minnesota Vikings, and he in fact did start 3 games last year. Okay. So, you know what? He wasn't half bad in those games. It's just unfortunately it came against the Chargers and the Panthers, who, I mean, really aren't scaring anyone. Though a case could be made with the Panthers and Derek Brown there. But yeah, maybe that's actually might not be a solid option there at center either. So, man, good on y'all. So, I feel really positive about the offensive line. If we're going to move to like playmakers, I kind of said my piece when it came to this wide receiver core. I honestly don't think Isaiah McKenzie makes the team. I think they'd rather have Isaiah Hodgins, who's just more of this like possession type of receiver. I imagine he ends up making the roster. He's been with this team for so long. They also bring in Allen Robinson, who at this point past his prime, but is still solid depth to have. The question is, does Jalen Hyatt take that next step? If he does, it's going to be at the expense of Darius Slayton. That's just fact. So, or maybe no. They like Wandale. If we're going to talk about some of the other guys here that are like depth, Miles Boykin, he's bounced around the league a bunch now, just kind of a vertical speedster with a little bit of size. Gunner over here is more of a special teams player. Asante, I couldn't tell you much about him. I'm kind of curious what college he came out of. Pull that over here. Asante, Wyoming. Okay, I don't recall you, my friend, but all right. Chase Cota, I believe that was a former Oregon receiver. You do still have Bryce Ford Whedon, who unfortunately had the injury last season. I believe it was the ACL, but a guy that was like, for his build, his size and speed is just kind of freakish. The question is, can you get anything from that? So, like, I think the weapons have a chance to be better. Like, I think Malik Neighbors is going to be really, really good. Question is, what kind of jumps do Wandale and Hyatt take here in respectively year 2 and 3 for them? When it comes to the rest of their pass catchers, too, Tyree Jackson. Oh man, he's still hanging around the league. That's pretty cool. I'm not wowed by the running back room. Eric Gray wasn't great last year, which is fine. Like, he's not like he looks a lot quicker than he tests, but he is a guy that'll get caught from behind and whatnot. So, like, I guess they were kind of hoping for more of the pass catching upside from him. I think Tyrone Tracy comes in and immediately starts like contending to see reps there because he's a good pass protector. He is a good pass catcher. Gary Brightwell, he's gonna be your power back. Maybe like, I think it's a long shot, but like a Jashawn Corbin, I liked quite a bit coming out of Florida State a couple of years ago, who was just kind of this like ridiculously quick athlete that had just like bad injury luck during his collegiate career. But I mean, again, man, the running back room ain't wowing me much. Nathan Rourke being on the squad's kind of cool. Tommy Cutlets is still here, but like, end of the day, man, I don't feel great about this offense. So they are one of the bottom units. I hate to say it, even though I feel really positive about some of like the offensive line. Malik Neighbors coming to town. Maybe it's just, I think maybe it's just my opinion on Daniel Jones. Like, I just don't think he's it. And maybe that unfortunately gets reflected on when I do my grades for this squad. But let's go ahead. Let's move to the defense. So when it comes to the defense, this is who I think are going to be the lead snap getters. And let's go ahead. Let's start talking about some of the grades I have for the defense here, as I still think the run defense is going to be piss poor. I think it's going to be near the bottom of the league. To me, it's basically Dexter Lawrence, save us. Because I think Burns, Cabrera, those guys are more penetrators, disruptors. They're not really, more so I think Burns is more so a guy that's not really going to be able to seal the edge and whatnot. And they're really going to rely a lot on those second level players like Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden, who are fortunately, they're plus in that regard. But still, I think chunk plays will be... Teams will be able to get chunk plays on the ground versus this squad. I truly believe that. Like, Jordan Phillips is like, he's brought in more to be just kind of like, hey, you give us a little bit of plus as a pass rusher, and you could come in and do your job adequate enough as a run defender. But still, I don't think it's that good. We can talk about the depth that they have there for run defense. It's guys like DJ Davidson, who's kind of mid. You got Nunez, is it Roches? But he's kind of mid. He's been around the league for a little bit. So, like, I don't know, maybe like a Jordan Riley steps up a little bit this year and kind of becomes really good on early downs. We'll find out. I'm just not there when it comes to this pass rush. I know some of y'all are going to be shocked, I'm not there when it comes to this run defense. And I know some of y'all are going to be shocked that I have a C- when it comes to the pass rush, because the likes of Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, it's hella sexy. That's all you got. That's all you got. Like, I get it, dude. Dexter Lawrence, he is elite for the position. He's a top 5, top 3 interior in the league. There is no argument here. But like I said earlier in this video, when it comes to Brian Burns, when it comes to Kayvon Thibodeau, these are guys right now that I view more as low-end edge ones that are kind of waiting for that big breakout year. I know some of you will be like, well, look at the sack total for Kayvon Thibodeau. Pressure rate kind of sucked with him. It truly did. Hey, that's just the honest truth. It kind of sucked with him. He did a good job of opening up stuff for other guys to come in there and do damage. But you still expect to see, you want that to get a little bit better on the play-to-play consistency. Brian Burns hasn't really had that breakout year yet. Like, this is a cat, like, let's just go ahead. Let's take a look at the stats over the course of his time there in Carolina. We're going to go look at that, as he has never eclipsed, he's only eclipsed 60 pressures once in his career. He's got a couple of double-digit sack seasons, but again, I'm looking at that like, okay, give me some pressure. You want to be elite. You need to get to that 80 number, bro. He was close in 2022, 68, still a ways off. I'm waiting to see that. I'm waiting to see him become that elite player that I truly believe he can be, because he's so freaking explosive. But past those 3 guys, this team's a hot lot of nothing when it comes to the pass rush. That's the truth. That's the truth. Jordan Phillips, he's fine. Azeez Ojulari, he's never healthy. You got Nunez, who's I'd say below average as a pass rusher. McFadden offers like a good blitzing aspect from the linebacker position. But again, this is going to be a team now. Again, if we're going to base this off what Mike Vrabel did during his tenure with the tight ends because, again, Shane Bowen, he was under Vrabel. They were 23rd in the league last year when it came to blitz rate. So, but again, they were a team that was very flexible in what they did. Like, they would go game to game, and it's like whatever the game plan called for, the game plan called for. And the defense generally did a good job of doing that. Unfortunately, last year you had injuries and such, and the offense was kind of wild in Tennessee. But I love their top 3 pass rushers. It falls off a freaking cliff, and you'd be like, oh, it's probably like that for most teams. Man, most teams got a little bit deeper than this, man. Most teams are a little bit deeper than this. I'm just going to say that. And I'm not going to pretend like Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns are like the best pass rushing duo in football. I don't think that's the case. I could think of a bevy of other guys. Like, you go to the Browns, you got Garrett and Smith. You got Parsons and Lawrence. You could talk about, the Dolphins. I mean, I know Chubb ain't healthy, but Shaq Barrett, even now, he's in the twilight years. He's still effective as a pass rusher. Keep him a limited snap total there. Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter. I'm not going to say Malcolm Kuntz is on that level. I'm not. But he's starting to emerge. Max Crosby. Like, this is a lot more tighter than it has been in years. It truly, truly is. That's why having depth at pass rush matters so much. But you got your linebackers. Everyone and their mom knows who the starters there are going to be in Micah McFadden and Bobby Okereke. Okereke arguably may have been one of the best linebackers in football last season. You can make a good case for that. We'll talk about the depth at the linebacker position in a minute, but let's talk about the secondary because this could honestly end up shuffled up quite a bit. This is just kind of what I fell on because currently, I mean, our lads, they got Drew Phillips listed as a nickel, which I don't think is bad because my comp for him was Kenny Moore. So I kind of like that. But I think they could really shuffle the order here based on, who the hot hand is. The only for sure I really know here is Deonte Banks and Jason Pinnock are your starters at corner and safety, respectively. They bring in a couple of rookies. How willing are they going to be to throw the rookies out there? That's kind of a big question for me. How willing are they going to be to do that? So I'm going with Cordero Flott in the slot just because also a lack of size. Is he up to like 175? He was very young when drafted. And I think he was only like 165. I'm kind of curious where he's sitting at now or if, they got him at 175. Okay, so, but I mean, dude's got so much length that he could stack more onto his frame to play outside. I mean, again, that was something he did. He did the slot and he played on the outside almost equally last year for the squad. I'm going to talk about Nick McLeod in a minute. A guy that, when called upon, wasn't half bad. Yeah, he had his goofs every now and then. I think it was the Dallas game. But he came in and he did well in parts. There is going to be a mixture. There's going to be this right in the hot hand. So let's kind of run in and just talk about some of the depth that they have here. And then we'll work our way back to the defensive line. But Andrew Phillips, I think he could play inside and out. You could say the same about Cordero Flott. Deonte Banks for sure is your starter. The question is Nick McLeod. How often is he going to be on the field? But those are the 4 guys. And then, I mean, Trey Hawkinson as a rookie last year, started him early. I like the size. I get it. He struggled a bit. Is what it is. I think he's probably for sure just good depth at this juncture. David Long Jr. might be a name to look out for to make the roster, potentially. Just throwing that out there. Because, I mean, guys like Darnay Holmes and Aaron Robinson haven't really done anything. They just haven't. And I feel like if you feel like you're good with Flott and Phillips as guys on the inside, you could part ways maybe with these guys that haven't worked in Aaron Robinson and Darnay Holmes. You probably could. Now we could jump to the safety position. You can make an argument who will start next to Pinnock. I feel like they're going to go with Tyler Nubin. They spent a second round pick on him. Dane Belton didn't really get a lot of snaps last year. I think he was in like 300 to 400 range last year, but was just kind of mid. Jalen Mills, keep that guy off the field. He hasn't been good in what feels like a decade, and I don't even think he's been around the league that long, but you get what I'm saying. So Belton was on the field for just under 300. I thought he was between 300 to 400, but so I mean, yeah, I'm gonna give it to Newman here, but Belton should be the first guy in if they have any injury concerns or someone needs a breather. Let's talk about the linebacker depth. Isaiah Simmons is still here. He's a guy that you could actually play in the slot as well. You could get creative with him. They did at parts last season. They did bring back Carter Coughlin. He's fine. Darian Beavers is still sticking around here. Hello, let's go. Former Bearcat. So, like, the depth's not great. I honestly couldn't tell you much about Matthew Adams off the top of my head. Not a player I'm just not familiar with. Sorry. But, I mean, hey, dude, I think McFadden and Okereke are low-key like a pretty good duo there. They're a pretty good tandem at linebacker. Boogie Basham, he was moved here, was it last season that he was traded? Can't recall now, but I mean, he gives them something, but he hasn't really shown much of anything since his rookie year, unfortunately. If you're looking more in the depth, it's not there. It's just not. So it's literally, hey, Ojulari, we want you in this rotation. Please stay healthy. And then again, I'm kind of anxious to see Jordan Riley. Does he step up and be more involved in this rotation? I do think DJ Davidson's going to be very involved. He was pretty involved in the rotation until he got hurt. Looking at some of the other guys they got, Elijah Chapman's going to be a practice squad guy. AC Rogers, probably a practice squad guy. He's a little undersized. I mean, Rakeem Nunez he's going to hold down the fort. Like, he is a solid depth player, but that's about it. So, like, all in all, like, I think, like, the defense might have some flash to it, but I'm still going with the wait and see approach when it comes to this defense. You got a new DC in town. How willing is he going to be to open up the playbook? Keep in mind, this is a DC that has been under Mike Vrabel for his whole career. Now he gets his time to shine out on his own. How will he do? So I am reeling it back a little bit when it comes to this defense, but let's get to why y'all are here. Let's see how I think your Giants will do in 2024. When it comes to the Giants schedule, it's about middle of the road. It's neither easy nor hard. It's a fair schedule. I think if things go absolutely right, if I'm completely wrong about Daniel Jones, if Shane Bowen just comes out and is like, hey, I'm my own man, this defense is good. If Brian Burns, Davon Thibodeau just turn into one of a top 5 pass rush duo in the NFL, if they figure out the run defense, I think 10 wins is very feasible. I think that's probably the ceiling when it comes to the Giants. Like, we could stroll through the schedule real quick. As let's say they beat a Sam Darnold led Minnesota Vikings. We could say they split. Let's say they split the NFC East. So let's give them home wins over the Cowboys, the Eagles, because it always feels like, man, they get a win over the Eagles every year. And then the Commanders. Let's say that. So bam, there's 4 wins. Tough one here with Cleveland. Seahawks, I think that's winnable. Bengals, I think the Bengals are going to be tough to beat this year if Burrow's healthy. And you get an angry T. Higgins, one on a contract year. Yeah, Steelers, they could end up being a mess. Panthers can end up being a mess. Coming out of the bye, you could beat the Bucks. Just unfortunate the Bucks are coming off their bye at the same time, but you get it at home. You could beat the Saints. You could probably, okay, let's say you could beat the Colts and the Falcons. That puts you at 11. I think that is like the ceiling of ceilings when it comes to this squad, if everything happens right and correctly. I think what's more feasible is what happened last year, not the injuries and everything, but the disappointment. Like, I truly believe Daniel Jones isn't it. He showed flashes, but other times just wasn't great. Even when the protection was good, I know those times were few and far between. Even when it was good, he wasn't great. You lose Saquon, and now you're relying on kind of Devin Singletary, who was solid last year, but a pretty middle-of-the-road back. He's fine. He's solid. You got unproven pass catchers at the very least. I think Malik Neighbors is going to be great, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I think the defense is still going to be ironing out some wrinkles, and they'll probably be in the bottom portion of the league, anywhere from like 23rd to 30th when it comes to where this defense will rank from like an EPA standpoint. That's why I have the Giants going 4-13 for my prediction. I know. Listen, I do this deep dive series, and after the series, I do a draft based on my draft order of this. So I have to make a for sure pick on what am I going with? What am I going with this squad? Some teams I'm gonna highball and I'm gonna go with their ceiling. Some teams I'm gonna lowball and go with the floor. Currently, the Giants, Vegas betting on odds are Giants win total 2024. Vegas has them at 6.5, and I think that's fair. I think this is probably a 5-6 win team, maybe. I'm lowballing it. I get it if you don't like it. It is what it is. That's what I'm going with. If I had to be like, put money down and be like, hey, I could only pick one number. Well, I'll go with 4. I'll go with them to disappoint, because that's what I know when it comes to this Giants team and Daniel Jones. I truly believe 2022 was an outlier. It was a variable in the system that wasn't meant to happen. I think what we saw last year, granted, I know that they were hurt, and I do like the depth a lot better, especially when it comes to the offensive line. But I think that was at least closer to what they are than what we saw in 2022. That's just my opinion. You're allowed to disagree with it. It's fine. I'm not right about everything. It is what it is. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you want draft content, I'm currently pushing out my rankings for the 2025 NFL draft, my summer deep dive. If you want a good watch list to go into the college football year, I got you covered. But as always, until next time, be easy, my friends. Later.